So, in our last deep dive, we spent some time with that Queenswood progress and options document.
Right. And if you recall, the messaging there was um, incredibly forward-looking, very optimistic.
Totally. It was all about momentum, growth, but we kind of pointed out that it left a lot of the fundamental logistics just unresolved.
It was a narrative, really, designed to reassure. He was focused on the destination, not so much the difficult journey.
And today we are shifting focus completely. We're looking at a parallel document, an internal audit from the Ministry of Finance.
And when you, our listener, hear the word audit, you naturally expect something very specific, a forensic financial check.
You expect them to trace every dollar, right?
Exactly. You expect financial certainty down to the last cent.
I certainly went into the source material expecting exactly that precise line-by-line money map. But what we found is, well, it's a problem that's far more profound than just, missing receipts. This audit revealed what we're calling structural blindness.
That's the perfect term for it. The system itself, the actual infrastructure for data collection, for tracking, for planning, it simply cannot produce that comprehensive to-the-cent money map.
And it can't create an accurate picture of the real service demand it's facing either.
Exactly. So this is our central theme today. The failure wasn't necessarily in the people, managing the system, but in the planning and the information systems themselves.
So you can't audit what the system doesn't even record.
You can't. If the fundamental infrastructure can't reliably track cost or need, then a fully accountable ledger becomes structurally impossible.
Okay, so let's unpack this structural failure. The audit suggests the problem starts right where services connect, at the seam.
It's a really insightful place for the critique to begin. The audit immediately flags a system integrity issue, right at that boundary between different services. Specifically, it notes the systems governing the youth transition are compromised.
And what's the consequence of that failure?
Well, what's fascinating here, the focus on continuity. The audit states, and I'm quoting, "The absence of an integrated approach to service delivery creates challenges for youth transitioning from children's services over to adult services."
That structural split, that matters enormously for planning, doesn't it?
It's huge.
I mean, imagine you're a young person aging out of a program. If that system isn't perfectly stitched together at that handoff point,
right, the moment they become an adult needing adult services.
and the initial data about their needs, their support history, it's either compromised or maybe just lost before it even gets into the adult services database.
And that's the key takeaway. That initial data contamination means budget forecasting, resource allocation, and crucially demand quantification. It all just breaks downstream.
If you can't capture who is coming into the system and what they need right at the point of entry, the whole picture is suspect.
The whole thing.
And this leads us directly to the central object of confusion in this deep dive, the RFSL, the Request for Service List.
Yes. And for most people involved, the RFSL is synonymous with the main waitlist. It sounds official. It sounds like a definitive, comprehensive registry of assessed, immediate needs.
But the audit explicitly challenges that assumption. And this is really the cornerstone of our deep dive.
It really does. The audit states the RFSL was never intended to be a complete list of assessed service needs. And that is such a critical distinction for you, the learner, to grasp.
It's not just a list of people waiting for validated services.
No, it's something much, much looser.
So wait, if it's not a validated waitlist, why is it so unreliable? What's actually contaminating the data and giving this false sense of demand?
Well, the audit is very clear on this. It says it's not a very accurate list because it consists of unvalidated service requests, requests for services not required within the next year, and other client information which is not updated on a regular basis.
Okay, so you're telling me that the central tool they use for planning includes requests that are completely unvalidated.
Meaning they haven't been checked against eligibility criteria.
And requests for services that won't even be needed for another year. Why is there no filter for immediate assessed need?
That is the structural failure. It's a mix of intentions, long-term wishes, and immediate necessities all jumbled together. It's not a clean count of current urgency.
So it's an unreliable record of service demand, the audit's own words.
Exactly.
And if that definitional unreliability isn't enough, we then move from the definition to just a brutal diagnosis of data quality. This is what we're calling the 42% shock.
This is the finding that should stick with you. The audit focused its testing on the high-priority files, the clients who should have the most accurate, most up-to-date information, and it found that 42% of the high-priority files tested overstated the actual service need.
42%. That means nearly half of the files they considered critical and urgent had errors that made the need seem greater than it was.
It's a huge number. The audit tested a sample of 149 high-priority clients, and 63 of them had errors.
That is a staggering failure rate, especially for the high priority category.
Well, if nearly half of your most urgent cases are misrepresenting the actual service required, then any planning, any funding estimates based on that data they're functionally useless.
And this leads directly to that unavoidable consequence we flagged earlier, the unknown unmet demand.
Precisely. If your foundational demand data is unreliable, you just can't plan. The audit concludes that the state of the RFSL makes it impossible for community living British Columbia to identify the unmet demand for its services or estimate the amount of funding required.
Wow. So if you are the learner and you're trying to find out what the true immediate demand is, the official internal audit is telling you, we can't reliably count what people need, and we can't reliably estimate what it will cost to meet that need.
The system is structurally blind to its own needs.
Which brings us to the financial side of that blindness, the missing money map.
Right. This explains why we couldn't get that detailed financial assurance we expect from an audit.
So what exactly prevents them from creating a full, accountable financial ledger?
The audit spells it out explicitly. It says CLBC cannot accurately forecast costs because, and this is crucial, CLBC does not have a system that links service needs to estimated costs.
Okay, let's be really clear about what that means. They know the total budget. They know total spending. But are you saying they can't drill down and say, client X got service Y at cost Z?
For most services, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. That level of detail is missing. The system's limitations, they do not allow CLBC to identify individual clients using each service or the associated costs.
But there's an exception, right?
One significant exception, yes. Residential services, they can track that. But for the vast majority of other services, cost tracking is completely opaque at the individual level.
That lack of a service-to-cost linkage, that's profound. I mean, without it, trying to interpret any claims of cost containment or efficiency becomes extraordinarily difficult.
How can you? If you don't have a reliable baseline linking service, Y to cost Z, how do you judge if you're paying too much for it? Or if you need more budget for it next year?
You can't. You can only look at the aggregate. And that opacity, that leads us directly to the big headline number that gets cited later.
The $57 million question.
Right. This number comes up in the audit. About $57 million in annual savings were realized through contract reviews, and we're told that money was reinvested.
And that's a large, positive figure. Looks great on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
But we have to immediately connect this back to that core structural failure we've been talking about.
A structural blindness.
Exactly. If the system can't track service costs by client or by service type, we have to ask the critical question for accountability. Where exactly did this $57 million in efficiency come from?
Was it just administrative streamlining? Did they change the rate paid per service? Did they fundamentally change who was eligible, or maybe just subtly reduce the scope of the service in the contract?
The audit gives us the headline number, but that missing service-to-cost linkage means we can't get a transparent explanation. It's a difference between saying we saved money and, showing your work.
And if the work is invisible, the quality of the savings can't be analyzed.
It can't.
And speaking of numbers, the audit does give an official waitlist count for September 2011, 2,958 clients on the RFSL.
Which breaks down into 2,126 clients already getting services but requesting more, and 832 who hadn't received any services at all.
But the crucial point comes immediately after, and it connects right back to that 42% shock.
The official caveat, it's necessary. It says, these numbers are likely overstated given the inherent problems in the RFSL. The true number of clients waiting for new or enhanced services is not known.
The agency, in its own internal audit, is confirming its primary metric for demand is unreliable.
It's right there in black and white.
So to solve this, the audit demanded new infrastructure. What specifically did they ask for to cure this blindness?
They demand a completely new information management system, one designed to fix these exact failures. It needs to do three key things: distinguish between current versus future needs, differentiate between properly assessed needs and simple client requests, and most importantly, link the needed services to their funding requirements.
It's an explicit call to end the structural blindness.
Absolutely.
That seems like a monumental task.
Okay, let's pivot from the dry data infrastructure to the human structure supporting it, governance and incentives.
We need to look at the structural change and accountability that happened. The audit outlines the original board of directors composition. And originally, the board was really embedded with the community. It consisted of stakeholders, which included individuals with developmental disabilities and their families.
So that sounds like a mechanism for actual community governance, a genuine voice at the decision table.
It was designed that way. And then came the pivot in 2010. The composition changed. The new board structure became 11 members, all appointed solely by the Minister of Social Development. That represents a fundamental change in accountability, doesn't it? It shifts the decision-making body from one designed for embedded community participation to one based entirely on ministerial appointment.
The accountability signal completely changes direction. And what's fascinating is the contrast between that governance shift and the communication strategy that followed.
Right. After the board was redesigned, the agency developed a detailed communications plan and committed to open dialogue with stakeholder groups. They even hired 2 community relations specialists.
And we have to be very clear here for you, the listener. Community relations is a strategy for listening and responding. It is not community governance.
It's not decision-making power.
No. You can participate in a dialogue, you can be listened to,
Yeah.
but you don't have a vote. You don't have power in how the agency is run.
So the rhetorical question becomes, what did the system ultimately prioritize? Was it a structure of community governance or an apparatus for community relations?
The audit signals the structural answer was the latter, and that tension played out against the backdrop of real pressure from the very clients they were supposed to serve.
We see that so clearly in the client satisfaction rate. It dropped from 76% satisfied in 2009 down to 71% in December 2010.
And the connection between the structural failures we've discussed and that client distress is unavoidable. The audit explicitly links the dissatisfaction to the core problem. Of the clients reporting they were dissatisfied, 63% were waiting to receive services.
So while the system was dropping its core data metrics, changing its governance, its clients were demonstrably less happy, and the reason was tied directly to long wait times. Now let's contrast that external pressure with the internal incentives. While satisfaction was dropping, what happened to executive performance pay?
The tension here is immense. The percentage of excluded employees and executives receiving their full at-risk compensation, it rose dramatically. It surged from 65% to 93%.
And the explanation for that success rate?
It was due to easily achievable performance goals.
Wow. So executives saw their bonuses, and we're talking about an annual pool of around $280,000 or to $290,000. They saw their bonuses increase and become almost guaranteed.
Even as this system was revealing its core inability to track demand or cost.
And client satisfaction was dropping because people were waiting.
That tension internal reward rising, despite external functional failure and client distress, is a powerful signal. It suggests the internal accountability was completely divorced from the service delivery reality.
It's telling that the minister eventually requested that they cease this practice.
Very telling.
Okay, let's bring this home and synthesize the core discoveries from this deep dive for you, the learner.
We really drilled 3 primary failures. First, the demand list, the RFSL, is structurally unreliable. That 42% overstatement in high-priority files, that's the proof.
Second, the entire system suffers from structural blindness on cost. The agency lacked a service-to-cost linkage, meaning true financial accountability, that to the cent ledger, it just could not be built.
And third, there was that fundamental structural change in governance. It replaced an embedded community voice with a minister-appointed board. And while they had communication efforts, community relations is just not a substitute for decision-making power.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's leave you with one final thought, rooted in that incredible tension we just discussed.
That tension between internal success and external failure.
If executive bonuses were easily achievable, almost guaranteed, while client satisfaction was dropping and unmet demand was officially unquantifiable, what signals does that send about the priorities being served by the system?
Challenge yourself to consider the utility of any claim of efficiency or progress that can't withstand an internal audit scrutiny of its own fundamental data. What is the true value of an efficiency that is invisible and cannot be measured transparently?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the audit and the anatomy of structural blindness.
We'll see you next time.